received from our previous 2-year cycle, and we're hopeful to have similar increases in voting once the voting concludes. We'll hear more about the voting cycle throughout this presentation, but started April 25th, going through May 13th, and we definitely encourage all of our families to get out and vote. So with that said, once again, welcome. And at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Senior Director of Governance, Rebecca Rosado.
Thank you, Jesse. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Rosado, and I'm the Senior Director of the Governance team here at FACE, the Office of Family and Community Empowerment. And we are going to review, before we discuss how to vote, we're going to discuss why it's important to vote and what community and citywide education councils are. So the community and citywide education councils are legally mandated advisory bodies, and the education councils help shape policies and priorities for New York City public schools. By law, each council has powers and duties concerning a range of matters, including making recommendations to improve services to New York City public school students. There are 32 community education councils and 4 citywide councils, as you can see from the graphic before you. The Citywide Council on High Schools, the Citywide Council for District 75, the Citywide Council on Special Education, and the Citywide Council on English Language Learners. And then there are 32 community education councils that represent students K through 8 across the 5 boroughs, 1 in each district. Citywide and community education councils give parents a voice in shaping their children's education. And that's why it is important for you to understand what CECs are and who your candidates are before you go in and you vote. With that, I'm going to ask for Constance to go on to the next slide, because we have a video that's going to be able to demonstrate more visually what community education councils are. Next slide, please. Okay, so we may be going through a bit of technical difficulties, but as Constance is working on that, yes, this is the video.
You might not believe this, but families help make big decisions about schools in New York City. Through community and citywide education councils, or CCECs, parents are elected to represent their communities and work on improving schools. They play an important role in decisions like approving school zoning lines, recommending how school buildings should be used, and contributing to the hiring process for superintendents and parent coordinators. CECs also meet with superintendents and principals to evaluate educational programs, discuss what families and students need, and make sure those voices are heard. Plus, they organize public meetings and town halls with the chancellor, giving families a platform to share their ideas and concerns. In addition to the 32 district community councils, there are 4 citywide education councils: the Citywide Council on High Schools, the Citywide Council on Special Education, the Citywide Council for District 75, and the Citywide Council on English Language Learners. Are you interested in making a difference? Join an education council and help shape the future of schools in our city. When families, schools, and communities work together, students do their best, not just in school, but in life.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we are going to review very briefly this election cycle timeline. So our application period opened January 13th and it went through February 16th, and it allowed any parent or legal caregiver of a New York City public school student the opportunity to apply for an education council seat. February 26th through April 24th, we had many candidate forums for each of the councils and an opportunity for all applicants to be able to share their platform with their constituents. As of this past Friday, April 25th, all the way through May 13th, the voting session for this election cycle has been opened, and all parents are able to vote online via their New York City schools account. After May 13th, the votes are tabulated and the results will be announced in June. And an orientation will be held for all winners in June, so that way come July 1st, they are able to take on their role as a council member on the education council for which they've been elected to. These council seats are held for 2 years. So this 2-year term starts July 1st, 2025 and ends June 30th, 2027. Next slide. So why is it important to vote? I think it's important to vote because the community and the citywide education councils offer parents the opportunity to help inform and make decisions that impact their children's education. And through CECs, parents elected are able to represent their communities and collaborating on improving the schools within their district. And the CECs play an important role in approving school lines, recommending how school buildings should be used, and contributing to the hiring process of superintendents and parent coordinators. Your vote helps elect education council members who will advocate for your school, your community, and support education for public school students. The impact of a CEC is best understood by speaking to its members. And now I'm going to share in the next slide testimonials from 2 former CEC members.
I had the pleasure of serving for 15 years in my council.
During my 2-year tenure, there was a very big controversial at that time, a lot of school closures.
And I got a chance to see some of the changes that we were trying to advocate for on our CEC. So we had approached our local elected officials, and particularly our Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez at the time, for a magnet grant. And we were able to secure a multi-million-dollar 5-year grant that impacted schools directly with arts, technology, and to this day, those programs still stand.
A school in District 4, which I had became very close with, was on the list for potential closure. And then I managed to organize parents and just like sit at the table with different key stakeholders and plan through what we were gonna do strategically. And we were all just motivated to ensure that we had better resources and services for the children in the school building.
Thank you. As you can see from the candidate testimonials, there's real impact, direct impact from your participation and involvement with community and citywide education councils. And whether you are serving in a council or are just a parent who cares about public school education, this is a forum to be able to speak on these topics on a local level and have your voice be heard and make change that is very impactful to not just your school or the school that your children attend, but to the schools across your district. And so in the 6 weeks preceding this voting period, we held candidate forums. And in these candidate forums, we allowed the applicants who wanted to run for a seat in education councils the opportunity to speak on their experience and why they wanted to run for education councils. And it gave their constituents, the parents in each of these districts, the opportunity to hear these candidates live and to be able to hear and connect with their experiences. And if you were unable to attend a candidate forum on the night that it happened, you are in luck, because the recordings are available on our New York City Public Schools website. And you are there able to click on any of the forums on any of the nights that it happened, and you are able to see a recording of that candidate forum as it happened that night. And you can also, on that same website, not just watch the video of the candidate forums, you're also able to explore candidate profiles, which include statements from all the candidates about their vision and goals. So you are able to go into the voting full knowledge of who wants to represent you and your voice in these councils and who you wish to vote for, because you are able to hear from them directly about what their goals and what their platforms are. And you're also able to read their candidate profiles that include these statements as well. And they are all in one place on our New York City Public Schools website. And with that, I'm going to pass it now to my colleague, Constance. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm Constance McLeod-Wills. I am the campaign manager for the CCEC election. So all voting is done via NYCSA. NYCSA is the New York City Schools account, and it is an application that lets you access important information about your child on any device. The website is accessible in 9 languages. It gives you access to your students' grades, IEP, you can report bullying, you can get forms, and as I mentioned before, you need a NYCSA in order to vote in this election. So in order to create a NYCSA account, you need to get an account creation code from your parent coordinator and make sure that all your children are linked properly. Voting eligibility. So it is a little bit complicated for voting in the CEC, but when you log into NYCSA, you will see what if things are done properly, like with your children's link, you will see who you can vote for. So you are eligible. Give me 1 second. I can't change it. Okay. Sorry. So you are eligible to vote for your district's community education council if you have a child attending pre-K to the 8th grade in a DOE school. You are eligible to vote for the District 75 seat on a CEC if you have a child in a D75 school or program in the CEC's geographic district. You are eligible to vote for your borough's representative on the Citywide Council on High Schools if you have a child in a DOE high school in that borough. You are eligible to vote for the Citywide Council on Special Education if your child has an individual education program, better known as an IEP, and attends a DOE school. You are eligible to vote for the Citywide Council for D75 if your child attends a District 75 school or program. You are eligible to vote for the Citywide Council for English Language Learners if your child is an English language learner and attends a DOE school. So now I'm going to walk you through screen by screen what you will see when you go to cast your vote in this election. So this is the first screen you'll see before you log in. It is the welcome page. And to get started, you click the sign in link. You enter your email and password. And if you don't have an account, you click on create new account. Please note that if you're creating a new account, as I mentioned before, you will need the creation code from your parent coordinator to assist you in linking your children to your account. You can only vote if you have a New York City public school student linked to your account. Once you log in, you'll see the information that is pertinent to you, related to you. And on the bottom of the page, you will see vote for CCEC. This is the tile where you will click to access voting. Once you reach the voting platform, you'll see a list of ballots available to you. These ballots are determined by the students linked to your New York City Schools account. Once you open a ballot, you'll see a list of candidates for that given council. Be on the lookout for the candidate profiles and candidate form recording links so you may learn more about the candidates as we mentioned previously. But you can also access those in NYCSA through these links. On each ballot, you will have the opportunity to vote for up to 3 candidates. After clicking continue, you will be prompted with a confirmation screen prior to your vote submission. Here you can edit your selection, return to the dashboard, which is the initial screen of the voting platform, which lists all of your ballots, or submit your vote if you think everything is correct. Once you submit your votes on a ballot, you will be provided with a receipt of your selection as shown on the screen. So we went through how voting works. We went through what a CCEC is and the timeline for our election. Now we're going to open the floor for questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Constance, and thank you, colleagues. So currently right now, we are in, as Constance said, the question and answer portion of today's webinar and information session. So I see that there are a few questions in the Q&A. So if you have a question, please put that in the Q&A and we'll be happy to read it and respond. So the first question that I see here is, if my school is a 6 to 12 school, why can't I vote for any Queens High School candidates? I have a rising ninth grader. So the key term here is that you have a rising ninth grader. So currently right now at the time of the voting, your child is an eighth grader, which would then qualify you to vote for district candidates and not high school candidates, because eligibility at the time of the election is based on where your child is at the time of the election. So at the time of the voting, your child is in eighth grade, even though next term they'll be in ninth grade. Currently, they're in eighth grade, which would then allow you to vote for district candidates and not high school candidates. Next question are, why are there not seats on CCs for other superintendents like Dr. Alan Chang? So the structure of community education councils is set forth within state law, and state law basically has designed what the organization or construct of each CC is. So with respect to Dr. Chang, I know that Superintendent Chang has about, I believe, about 40 plus high schools under his superintendency, which would, in a sense, connect him to the citywide council for high schools. But there isn't the CCs are not specific to a superintendent. The superintendents are more the district superintendents are connected to the district CCs. The citywides are a little bit different, and in the case of the citywide council on high school, because there's not one singular superintendent for all of our high schools, there are many high school superintendents that would be, in a sense, connected to the citywide council on high schools. Next question here is, why don't parents get to elect or have a say in replacement CC members when someone leaves the CC? Only current CEC members get a say. Yes, this kind of goes back to the law. So the law specifies that there is a 2-year term for CC members. And within every 2-year term, there is an election for CC members. In the interim, the replacement of vacancies is then directed to the CC. So it is really it is a combination of law and combination of our deregulations that basically dictate how vacancies are filled in the interim years before general elections. And I'm sorry, my screen is moving around, so let's see here. The NYCSA account only allows one email address, so my husband can't vote because my email is attached to my daughter's NYCSA account. So I'm going to have my colleague Oliver Nunez respond to that particular issue. I know that he was responding in the chat, but I just wanted to give him an opportunity. Oliver, could you come off mute?
Yes, thank you, Jesse. Yes, as I think I added to the chat, essentially you use your email address to log into the NYCSA account, and that is how you are uniquely identified. So two accounts under the same email address we would have no way of differentiating between those two accounts. For your husband to also vote, he would have to create a New York City Schools account using a separate email address.
Thank you so much, Oliver.
Thank you.
Our next question here is, my child attends high school and has an IEP. Do I get to vote in both areas, high school and special education? So the answer to that is yes, because your child has an IEP, you would be able to vote for both high school and special education. See here, I'm sorry, let me just, there's a question here. Will we be able to review the bio of the candidates before voting? Yes. So, as was mentioned before, I believe my colleague Rebecca Rosado had mentioned before that prior to the voting period, we had a series of candidate forums, over 60, that occurred where candidates were able to uh, share and answer questions and basically introduce themselves to their respective communities that were running for councils for. So those are recorded. Those are on our site, so you can access those. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the team in the Q&A if you could respond to the parent who asked this particular question with a direct link to our candidate forum page so that they can view the recordings of the candidates. And, okay, so for families with more than one student in public schools, can you break down how the voting process will go for them? For example, if both students are multilingual learners, um, students, and one is a student with a disability District 75 program. So I'm going to defer to my colleague Oliver again. Oliver, can you share with us and just break down how?
Yes, of course. So if you ballots are assigned and determined by the eligibility of the children linked to your New York City schools account. Meaning, if you have multiple children who are English language learners, you would have that number of ballots to vote on the citywide council on English language learners. The same can apply to any of the educational councils, including the community education councils.
Thank you, Oliver. Next question here is, what are the campaigning rules for candidates currently sitting on PTA, SLT, CC councils? What can disqualify you? Can you talk about plans for next year while running? So what we have on our website, we do have campaign guidelines on our website. And once again, I'll ask the team to share that link to the parent who's asking this respective question. But the campaign guidelines were a direct result of this question where in years past, I know that there were a lot of our parents who were asking to be a bit more specific, as to what the do's and don'ts are with regards to campaigning. So that's where the campaigning guidelines are. There are also some examples of the do's and don'ts, like it'll state what the do's and don'ts are, and there are examples that illustrate more specifically, so that way we get a better sense of what we're able to do and not able to do. And next question is similar. Can you give more guidelines for promotion campaigning? Yes, that's where the campaigning guidelines, that's what that does. And it's even more uh, uh, specific. It definitely has, like as I mentioned before, not only does it have do's and don'ts, but it does have specific examples. Okay, so this, for families that have both a child in a non-public school and others in public school, how can they cast their vote if NYCSA shows an ineligible notice on their NYCSA account? Would they need to create a separate NYCSA account just for their child that attends public school with a different email? This one, I'll call in my colleague Oliver, but I don't know if the question is that you're receiving an error message that shows ineligible. I'll ask my colleague Oliver to jump in here.
So in instances where you have a New York City public school student linked to your NYCSA, in addition to a non-public school student, you should be able to get through to the voting site with the credentials of only the New York City public student. If that does not seem to be the case, please reach out to us at elections 2025 at schools.nyc.gov so that we can investigate further with additional details.
Thank you, Oliver. Next question here is, please explain how borough president appointees are vetted by face. And if a parent has an online store, does that qualify for a business in the district if they do not live or have a child in the district? So I'll answer the second question first. What happens as part of the vetting process of an application is that information is given and our ethics office reviews it to see, for instance, this question, to make a determination if this particular respective business online would, in a sense, pose a conflict. There are some conflicts that would cause a candidate to be ineligible, and there are other conflicts that will cause a candidate to have to seek a waiver, a waiver to be able to conduct business on the CC. For instance, if it was a situation where uh, they had a particular business and that business dealing came up for vote, at a CC, I'm being very general, they would have to recuse themselves or receive a waiver to be able to continue to serve or be able to serve. On the first part, Bibi, do you want to jump into when we receive our borough president appointee applications and what our process is?
Sure. Certainly can. I actually put the link on to our website that explains the eligibility criteria for when you're applying to the borough president and or public advocate in order to be appointee. You will first fill out the application. Once the application comes to us, we will vet for eligibility. To the person's question earlier, you need to live in the district or have a business. You don't have to have a child in public school in order to be eligible. Once that is confirmed, the borough president or the public advocate will receive your application, and then they will interview you. If they decide to confirm, you will then go through a second layer of vetting process with our conflicts of interest officer. And at that time, if everything is clear and the borough president or public advocate would like to appoint you, the appointment is made. And we will onboard you and orient you and give you all the information in order for you to serve on the council. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Bibi. I have a question here. Can a candidate be elected to serve both on a district council and a citywide council like high schools? The answer is yes. So if you have a child in a pre-K through 8, and you also have another child within high school, this candidate would be able to apply to both. They would be able to be elected to both, but that's why we, in the application, ask candidates to rank their choices. So that way we know which is, in a sense, the ranking preference. But yes, you are able to if you're able to be eligible for both if you have children in different grade levels, like high school, pre-K through 8, or if you have a child within a District 75 program and another child in a different program, that makes you eligible for another council. You are eligible to apply to both and receive votes on both. You're only able to serve on one. Okay, so this question is, once you vote, are your choices locked, or can you go back and change them? Your choices are locked. So once you've committed to a vote, you can't go back, in a sense, change that vote. And can you please clarify, if a student has 2 separate parent accounts linked to their OSIS number, they still only get 3 votes totals, not 6? I 2 separate parent accounts linked to their OSIS numbers. I believe the answer is 3 votes total, yes, not 6. But Oliver, am I correct about that? Am I interpreting that correct?
Yes, the weight of the votes is still 3 on any given ballot, regardless what whether one parent votes or two parent votes.
Thank you, Oliver. And then here a question on what date will results be released. So what happens, just taking everyone through the process. So voting is open from April 25th through May 13th. Then there is a period where the votes are tabulated,
Los votos se
and then there
cuentan.
is, oh, I'm sorry. I think someone just needs to be on mute.
Okay.
Um, so the votes need to be tabulated, and then there is a confirmation, right? There's a review just to make sure that everything is correct. There isn't a specific date that we would give you and say that they will be released on this respective date in June, but they will be released in June. Usually, historically, it's always been early June, but once again, this is contingent on reviewing everything, ensuring that everything is accurate, and ensuring that once the vote is released, that is absolutely 100% accurate. So it has gone over numerous times. Is this Zoom recorded and will it be made available to parents? If so, how? Yes, it will be made available to parents. And what we will do is, as a follow-up, similar to the correspondence that we sent, kind of inviting everyone to the forum, we will do a similar follow-up, thanking everyone for attending the forum, and also releasing a link to tonight's session so that those who were not able to attend would be able to access. So have a question here about the deadline for voting being extended. The deadline for voting is set within state law. There isn't an ability um, for the department to, in a sense, extend past a particular deadline because it's set that voting needs to conclude by this particular date in May. But I will once again reemphasize that voting is open from April 25th through May 13th. And we are definitely encouraging everyone to vote. If uh, if you hear of parents having any questions or issues, please refer them to Elections 2025 at schools.nyc.gov, and we'd be happy to assist. This question here is, how is the panel chosen to interview the candidates? How much time do they receive to answer the questions accurately so we're able to pick the right candidates? So I think this question may be referencing the candidate forums and how those are organized. So similar to, so the process within the election cycle is you have the application process, like the application opens up in January. You have several weeks for individuals to apply. And then what happens with the candidate forums are organized by our president's councils throughout the city. So that is part of the election process. The president's councils then host these respective forums. They come up with, questions to ask each respective candidate. And that is how, in a sense, in a general sense, how the forums happen and are organized, and how individuals in a sense are chosen, like the president's council they are part of the election process. This question here, my child attends school outside our school district. Am I voting for the district he attends school or for our home district only? The district that you would be eligible to attend is the district where your child is attending school. So that's the district that would would uh would in a sense, like, who you would vote for. Question here, can there be multiple candidates elected from one school? um There is what they call a same school rule. within the election. And what that means is that, I mean, during the election process, every 2 years, there isn't the ability for multiple candidates from one school to be elected to the council. So what'll happen is that uh, the member receiving the most votes from that respective school, is the member selected, to the council. However, after the election cycle happens, and if there are vacancies on a CC, there is the possibility to have, candidates from the same school serve on the CC. That restriction is only, every 2 years for the general election.
Jess, can
Uh,
you answer this question live? Do two-parent households get 2 votes? One per parent? And can you explain the half vote per child? Yeah, I think it's
sure.
important to share that.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Oliver. Oliver, can you go through that for us?
Yeah, of course, Jesse. So, in instances where more than one parent votes, we need to divide the weight of the votes by 2 in order to justify um, the additional points being introduced. So, for example, if parent A makes a selection where they vote for only one candidate, they will assign that candidate 1 vote on that ballot. In another situation, if parents B and C both vote on a ballot in which they each select only one candidate, each of those candidates will receive 0.5 votes from each parents B and C, totaling a possible 1 vote. So uh, I want to remind everyone that you are eligible to select up to 3 candidates per ballot, meaning if a single parent decides to exercise all of their votes on a singular ballot, they can at max submit 3 votes on a ballot. In the same situation, if two parents vote, they are eligible to submit a max of 3 votes in that singular ballot, which is why we have to have their votes.
Thank you, Oliver. See here. Is a school allowed to help inform parents about voting in general or share information if a parent from the school community is running for election? And would the school be able to encourage parents to support a specific candidate like myself? So on the last one, the school would not, in a sense, be able to encourage one parent over the other, encourage like um, voting for one candidate over the other candidate. But what they can do is they can share information about all the candidates who are running, in their respective districts. So to give parents an opportunity to make their respective choices. And they can share information. We encourage schools to share information. We encourage schools to share information about voting. And but to support a specific candidate, that would not be available. That would not be allowed. And here's a question here: can I rerun for the CC? If you are still eligible to run for a council, let's say you ran 2 years ago and you're still eligible to run again, or you served currently and you're still eligible to run for a council, you can continue to run for the CC.
Jess, there's a question. I think, Oliver, you can do justice with this question by explaining and verbalizing for our attendees. It's 3 votes per family or per child. Say a family has 4 children and they are in every grade band, right? Let's say 3K through 8. Do they get 12 votes or just 3?
So eligibility and ballots are wholly determined by the children linked to your Nixa account. If you have various children who meet eligibility standards, you will be provided with the equivalent number of ballots to meet those eligibilities. Again, meaning if you have various students who are in D75 programs, you would be prompted with that number of D75 ballots.
Thank you, Oliver. Just going through some more questions here. I am a parent from the school and I'm running in the election. Since most of the parents speak Chinese and it's hard for me to communicate with them directly, would the school or PTA be able to help let parents know that someone from the school community, me, is running? I'm not sure if this is allowed and the PTA wasn't sure either. So I just wanted to ask. I think it goes back to my question before is that the school does have access to interpretation supports and services. They can use those interpretation supports and services to let parents know about all candidates and let them know about the entire process. And question here is, the school should not say Jane Doe from our school is running for CEC, correct? Correct. And I do understand, like, the intention is you're supportive of this candidate and you know would like to share about it, but that's not allowed. Like we want to ensure that there is, you know, if we're going to share information about candidates, that we share information about all the candidates, and we should direct parents to all of the information so that they can make their determinations and not single out one candidate over another. So I'm going to ask Oliver. Oliver, there's still oh, I just lost the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a repeat question. If you have
Okay.
children in both public schools, Jess, and you have children in a charter school, how does that vote correlate with the Nixa and separating the ballots? I think parents are a little confused about that. Oliver, I think you answered it, but maybe we can say it out loud so others can hear.
Yeah, of course. So you are only eligible to vote in ballots that are provided to you by New York City public school students. Charter school students and non-public school students would not be available to vote on, let's say. If you do have a charter school student, in addition to a New York City public school student linked to your New York City schools account, you should still be able to vote on the public school students' ballots. So please attempt to access voting through your New York City schools account. And if you have any difficulties or if you have any errors, feel free to reach out to us at Elections 2025 so that we can investigate and best assist you.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Bibi.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course, Jess. I think Jess also there was a question, a parent wrote it twice, Oliver, and I think we should make this very clear that you are voting for the district in which your child attends schools, now where you live. Oliver, you also answer that, but maybe others have similar questions and we can just say it as well for the recording.
Yeah, thank you, Bibi.
Mhm.
If your child attends a school outside of your district, this could be for a number of reasons, but it is most often seen with students attending D75 schools and primarily D75 sites. You should be prompted to vote on the district of the building in which your child attends school, not the district of the primary sites or the primary location. If you, as a parent, find things to be different when you try to access voting, please reach out to us at Elections 2025 at schools.nyc.gov so that we can investigate further and assist you.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you.
Question here, can you vote for yourself? Yes, you can, has to vote for yourself if you're running. And I'm going through, oh, there's another question. Can the CC elections be every 4 years instead of every 2 years? That would be a change in state law. So the elections are governed under state law. So for the term to be either extended or changed in any way, there would actually have to be a change within state law to allow for that to happen. Another question about what is the proper way to campaign so there won't be violations. I'm going to point everyone again to the campaign guidelines on our website, which kind of share what the do's and don'ts are with respect to campaigning. So there's a question here about endorsing and endorsing individuals. So once again, I refer everyone to the campaign guidelines. It gives a bit more information about what the do's and don'ts are with regards to endorsements, campaign endorsements. And Oliver, if you wanted just to explain this one as well, can you use all your votes for one candidate, or do you give them 1 to 3 votes? Just kind of explaining the 3 votes per person.
Yeah, of course. You can select up to 3 distinct candidates on each ballot. You may not attribute more than 1 vote per candidate per ballot, meaning if you have multiple children for which you have the same ballot, for example, you have various kids in District 3, you would be able to vote that number of times on those ballots. So that is the only way in which you can attribute more than 1 vote to a candidate. It has to be across separate ballots.
Thank you, Oliver. And that is the last question that I see. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. 2 more came up. Give me 1 moment. So there's an issue about an ineligible alert popping up on the e-ballot page. So what I would encourage is that um, the parent with this respective issue, if you can connect with us, like any particular issues with regards to troubleshooting or support, you can reach us at elections2025 at schools.nyc.gov, and we could help troubleshoot this issue. And then the last question, because I see we're about at 7, the last question for today, do you have a goal percentage for voter participation? Is there a way to measure such a goal per school? So I mean, the goal is we want all of our parents to be able to vote in this election. We encourage, we're encouraging all of our schools to share information on voting to their families, to encourage them to vote and participate. We definitely want to, have greater participation than 2 years ago, and our encouragement is that we want all our families to engage in their right, and their right is, they're parents of children within our school system, and they have the right to vote, and we'd like them to exercise that right. So with that said, I know that we're at 7 o'clock. I wanted to thank everybody for, once again, your attendance at today's info session. We greatly appreciate it. As we committed to before, we have recorded this session and we'll be sharing it as a follow-up email to all. And please feel free to share, the link to those who were not able to attend. And once again, we encourage you all to vote. Definitely want everyone to vote in this election. It's open from April 25th, as we mentioned, to May 13th. So we encourage everyone to go out and vote. So once again, thank you so much for your attendance at tonight's info session. I want to thank our interpreters, as always, for their support, our faith staff for their support, and we wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you, Jesse. Good night, everyone. Interpreters, thank you so much. You are dismissed.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, good night, baby.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Goodbye.